session. I'll now take this moment to introduce the respected resource person of this session, Dr. Ashish Kumar Sana sir, professor from University of Calcutta. Sir, your specialization is in financial markets and institutions, microfinance, small business, and you have done your BCom honors, MCom, and PhD from University of Calcutta. Presently, you are professor in Department of Commerce, University of Calcutta, and are also associate editor in Indian Accounting Review, IAAA Research Foundation, and also a treasurer in IAAA Research Foundation, and also being the joint secretary of Indian Accounting Association, Kolkata branch. You have till now guided 14 MPhil research scholars along with 8 PhD research scholars, while one MPhil research scholar is currently under your guidance along with 2 PhD research scholars. You have also completed 3 projects, and along with that, you have numerous publications in various journals of national and international repute. You have also contributed 9 books and have written more than 30 book chapters. And apart from that, you have also attended various conferences and seminars in the capacity of resource person and keynote speaker. I welcome you, sir. And now I'll take this moment to invite Mr. Chandan Veer from Department of Management Sciences, Mahatma Gandhi Central University, to extend a formal vote of welcome. Over to you, Chandanji.
Thank you.
Thank you, Siddharthji. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Chandanji,
Yes.
you are audible.
Yeah. Good morning, sir. Good morning, and it's a matter of great privilege and honor to have you, sir, with us today in our capacity building program. Uh, Thank you, sir. Thank you for, and we would like to welcome you, sir, on behalf of Department of Management Sciences. It's really a great privilege to have you, and we are really thankful to you for sparing your valuable time for and giving your consent to being with us. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. And sir, I would like to just give you a brief information you about our program. So we have participants from all over India, as well as few are from abroad also, and they are mostly research scholars as well as faculty in different departments, sir. Sir, now I would like to hand over the dice to you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Thank you, the team of the university that you have organized this capacity building program nicely for the 2 sessions, morning and evening sessions. It is a very good initiative that you have taken. Thanks, my good friend Parmesh Kumar, who happens to the dean of this management sciences and commerce, and thank all the professors from the university, along with the participants, those who are taking the pain on the morning session, and also are very interested in pursuing different types of writing of articles and books, of course. So as I understand, over the last few days, and once again, I convey my sincere thanks for inviting me to share my views before the audience, before the learned participants. Of course, they are very, very efficient and very, very learned one, and I know they in their own field they are they have a different opinions, right? So absolutely, from my perspective and from my department, of course, I convey my sincere thanks and gratitude that you have taken this kind of initiative to learn and relearn of our participants. And I also convey my sincere thanks to the participants, not only in India, even in abroad, to attend this program. So, as I understand from the topics that sent me, or rather we can say the topics absolutely uh, designed for this particular capacity building program. So this is very, very important aspects aspects that how a researcher, prospective researcher or prospective teachers, or the already those who are a guide in a different institutions, how they will publish, how they will publish a good book, good journal, become an editor of a journal, or how to produce different manuscripts, so many things. So over the last few days, you have learned so many things as I understand from the topics, and so many terms and terminologies you have understand. So sometimes it's a very difficult task for me, as you know, the this kind of syllabus, or rather the topic that for the last 2 3 years it become very popular among the universities, colleges, and the researchers. Why it become very popular and mandatory, of course, at the right moment, right? So as you know, the University Grants Commission, whenever it published its notification before the scholars and the university teachers, or the college teachers, or the researchers, especially when they want to publish any kind of I mean, any article or books, whatever. So this kind of ethical issues is very important, as you know very well. So not only in India, even the globe around the world. So this is very popular at the right moment. Not only today, it's a very long history, as we know, long history of this kind of ethical issues and research, especially from the not only from the research perspectives, each and every field. This kind of ethical issues is very important. Even we, the teachers, uh, of course, we have to follow this kind of ethical uh, uh, aspects also. So, keeping in mind this kind of background, I do understand that you have learned the plagiarism or the other aspects like the journal or article, how to write article, the role of authors, or the different things. So today the topics that I have been allotted, or rather rather I may say that I'll be discussing the topic that I'll show it in a PPT form. Then I'll discuss the issue. So the one request from my end, whenever you have any questions, please let me know that that I'll definitely try to my level best. The another important thing is this. Another important thing is this: whenever you feel another important thing, whenever you have this kind of questions, please ask me. I'll try to my level best. Second thing, as you know, this topic is very common in that sense, and even uh, very not common, even in not common to the all the people, even in common to the researchers at the right moment, but not common to the other sections of the people, of course. And at the same time, the topic is so vast and so critical and so uh, different aspects involved here, right? So that's the important thing. So keeping in mind of this kind of issue, I'll try to my level best to discuss the different aspects of this topic. So let's begin with this kind of issue today. We have a 1 hour 30 minutes, already 10 minutes gone. So don't worry, whenever you feel free. This is a discussion, common discussion. This is not an exhaustive. This is some of the important aspects we will try to highlight. I understand you are the researchers, very sincere researchers. We are, you are at a very beginning of your career, and you have to go miles to go. Of course, you have to guide so many students. You have to publish a good articles, journals in a journals or a book form. You have to write books, right? So before 20 years, when I started writing of books, whatever the things, we don't understand what kind of ethical issues have to follow at the time of writing a book or article, because this issue does not came to us in a formal way. This is called as a formal or informal way, right? So step by step I'll try to discuss it. So this issue not come to us in a formal way. When it talks about the formal way, that it has to be formalized, right? So why it has to be formalized? So before 20 years or 30 years, when we started this kind of writing of the papers or articles or books, that time the data or the information not available today's, I mean, the pace of availability, right? For example, before 30 years, the internet was very slow one, or even we can say it's very difficult to access the different types of journals, papers, or books in a soft form or digital form. Okay, so this is one of the important issue that time that you understand, of course. It was very difficult to access the different theses, journals, or books in a soft form. So what we understand today is a completely different world that we have entered. The world is artificial intelligence, where you can access a huge number of books, huge number of journals, cracking different articles, or downloading different articles on different subjects, right, on different issues, on different topics, either in a science, whatever, right. You can use so many softwares for analyzing data, whatever. As you know, this is the common phenomenon that we observe for the last uh, 1 decade. So these are the radical changes taken place over the last 10 years in the field of research, of course. So the question is how you can utilize this kind of technology and the digital world to pursue this kind of research programs, as well as writing good papers and books. So this is a very, very important and crucial area. So coming to the other aspects, we know we are the teachers, of course, the teachers and scholars of the different academic institutions, right? Mostly in a social science, not in a medical science or the other typical, I mean, the technological sciences, technological backgrounds. So you look into this phenomenon for the last 2 decades. So the another phenomenon came to us, that there are a lot of regulatory authorities. They're continuously monitoring the institutions. I'm just talking about some of the backgrounds of this kind of issue. Otherwise, I say the topic would be more and more interesting to you. So for the last few years, or even 2 decades, most of the regulatory authorities, in case of the higher educations throughout the world, they imposed a lot of rules and regulations over them. For example, curriculum development, for example, the ranking, for example, the assessment, for example, the reassessment, for example, the recruitment process, for example, the evaluation process, particular department, particular course, particular uh, programs, SAP, DSA, or the other programs by the different regulatory bodies. Right, they frame this kind of regulations. So look into this, say 50 years or 80 years or 100 years back in our university. Look into the C.V. Raman or the other Acharya Prafullo Chandra Rai. That time it was not that, right? Imagine. So they did a wonderful, excellent research in our institution in Calcutta University. You might know the name of the Bengal Chemicals. The founder of Bengal Chemical is one of the greatest scientists in Bengal, Acharya Prafullo Chandra Rai. So you see, the Professor Rai used to stay in our university campus. He started his day at the morning at 7 a.m. Just imagine. So and even up to 10, he used to work in his library. So imagine the people contributed in our academic institutions, not only in Calcutta. Even Calcutta University, one of the oldest universities in India. Even most of the universities, there are a lot of faculty members. They don't think about this kind of issue, say 50 years back, right? So they are continuously working with their love and passion. That is very important, love and passion. How to innovate, how to develop, how to solve problems, how to develop newer things. They don't think about the precarism, they don't think about this kind of ethical aspects. Automatically it came in their own way, that whatever the things I would be I would be writing, I would be developing. It is my own. So I don't try to copy of these things from the other people. Of course, that time it was very difficult to get it from the other people. So that time they connected with the different scientists throughout the world, like even the Einstein or the the Bosch's theories, Einstein Bosch's theories, Meghna Shah. That time we have a great scientist in our university. Why I'm talking about it? So there is no question of the ethics, no question of the publishing journals and articles and books, right? So see the way that they were they were they were pursuing they pursued their programs, research programs, creating their own laboratory in their own way, right? It is an amazing. It was amazing, and absolutely we salute their contributions for the cause of the human society. So this is the phenomenon that we understand, but the thing today is a very complicated and very complicated in that sense. The data, the different types of researches are available to you at the right moment. The publications are available at the right moment to you. Number one. Number two, if you look into this, the other aspects, for example, the integrity, the other issues from the researcher's point of view, there is no doubt that I hope that most of the teachers, most of the scholars, they don't think this kind of these unethical practices they are doing, right? So absolutely, I have a full faith and trust of our colleagues, of our scholars, that they are doing their own work, right? So hope that what I'm trying to say, I don't know whether do you agree with me or not. If I uh, rightly communicated or not, I don't know. But is it true? Of course, it is. Is it true from your end? So if you can, if anyone can respond, please, I'll be appreciating your views. Anyone?
Our participants can unmute themselves and respond to
Yes.
the resource person of the session. I welcome all the participants to respond.
Anyone that what I am talking about it, is it you're with as per, because this is a open session, you can I know that you are uh, Professor Kiran, do you what I am talking about at the right moment, do you agree that this kind of phenomenon, that we are the researchers, we are the of course the guides, right? Scholars guide. So this is the complete phenomenon, and that I have a full trust with my colleagues that they are doing this kind of. So even the courses are introduced. I hope that it is a formal way, but I hope that this is very important at the right moment. But at the same time, I have a full trust of my colleagues that they don't require this kind of thing. But whatever the thing is, this sometimes there are some cases reported throughout the world. That's why policymakers, regulators, they try to frame some policies. That's my point. So now I'll coming back to the other issues. So I hope that you know the world ranking, right? You know the world ranking of the higher education institutions, like the Times ranking or the QS ranking or so many other ranking authorities or the institutions independently. They're ranked, taking the different parameters, right? So they are ranked the different universities and higher education institutions. Okay. So for example, the parameters when they are ranking, for example, if you look into the world university ranking, like the Times ranking, okay. So when you're talking about the Times ranking, right? So you look into the for the last year's time ranking. So uh, why we are very worried about it? We have to find out the reason. Some of the important reasons why we are very worried about it. The reason behind this, the countries like India or the other developing countries or the potential countries in the contribution of the field in the science and technology and the other fields, right? So research is very important. If you look into the University of Oxford, California Institute of Technology, Harvard University, right? Harvard University or the MIT, right? So what interesting point is this, their performances or their rankings mostly 1 to within 10. For the last year, the University of Oxford placed number 1. Okay, so why it became it? Because they got the 99% in the field, the point assigned to the research. Okay, so then the question come the quality of research, right? Then the question come the quality of research. What kind of quality of research, right? There are so many scholars here or abroad. The quality of research is a very important one. How do we measure the quality? Who will measure the quality? It depends on the different journals, depends on the different magazines or the books. This is the quality. How do we define? Because the quality itself highlighted the contributions, original contributions. In that sense, it's a bigger contribution. The contribution not even published, not only published, even in it's a very important contributions in the field, in the different fields. For example, I'll give an example of the, say for example, the Journal of Finance. It's a very the top journal in the world in the field of finance, Journal of Finance. If you want to publish an article in Journal of Finance, how many process they adopted for publication of a journal? If you submit a journal, right, there are a lot of process they will their steps they will follow. Okay, so the rejection rates almost 99% of the journals. Imagine. Okay, so before sending your article to a good quality journal, so of course, who will decide the good quality? There are certain bodies, they will decide the good quality, being this so many impact factors, as you have already know about the different impact factors or EJ index, whatever. The quality of journal, whenever you put your article to the top quality of journals, has already been assigned or already been decided or already been decided by the different organizations. If you want to send your article to them, you always thinking about the rejection rates, right? That means the contribution is very important, right? So keeping in mind of this kind of issue, so it's a very important one when we are talking about this issue from our perspective. In this class or in this lecture, the two issues have been will be highlighted. Of course, this is not the two issues is a completely one. There are so many other issues that one by one I'll be trying to share before you. It's a discussion type lecture. It's not a, because you see when we are talking about this kind of one, of course I do acknowledge the contributions, acknowledge the support from the different literatures. Of course, because this is a ethical class, I have to support, I have to acknowledge the publications or available literatures available in the internet. Then I'll come to some of the case studies, how it happens. So there are two issues, COP as well as WAME, right? So the topic basically the best practices or the standard setting initiatives and guidelines. So there are few important terms and terminologies that that who will set the standards, unless and until there are standard setting boards and committees. For example, in our accounting field, right, there are standard setting boards. For example, the ASB, for example, the US GAAP, right? So there are, for example, the Cost Institute, Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, or the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. They played an important role in setting the standards, right? Similarly, when we are talking about the research ethics, as you know, there are different fields of learning. How do we set the standard? Very difficult task. And how do you comply these standards? Who will take the initiative? Who will surveil? Who will, I mean, look into this kind of standards? Whether you have followed the standards or not. Today we have a technology. We are trying to follow these kind of standards by using the different tracking systems as well as the artificial intelligence systems, whether you are properly maintaining the standards or not, right? So look into this important aspects like the initiatives and guidelines. Who took this kind of initiatives for the last 3 decades? Of course, one is the COP, another one is the WAME. Or there are so many other international and national bodies over the last 3 decades, and they have this kind of best practices as well as standards. They sets for the publishers, for the authors, for the institutions, and for the other organizations, right? So what kind of best practices, what kind of standards, what kind of initiatives they have taken, we the researchers, we the scholars, we try to understand that whenever you will become an editor, you will become an associate editor, you want to publish a journal, you want to publish a book, you will become an author, co-author, ghost author, or the other supporting authors. What kind of standards to be followed for a particular journal, particular book, particular publication? Okay, that is the important aspects today. We know there are so many things already discussed, but you see, the standards and best practices, it's not a 1+1. This is a common practices. For example, the transparency, the standards, right? So how the transparency will be maintained, right? There are no, I mean, the typical 1+1 or scientific methods that it will follow look like this, right? There are so many gray areas, so many things that you have to, by your own judgment, you have to follow these kind of standards, right? So look into this other aspects. We have two institutions in your own courses given. One is a COP, WAME. Basically, these two is the second one is a medical journal related issues. If you look into the full form of the COP, it is available in our website. Don't worry. The COP is a Committee on Publication Ethics. You know that internationally there is a Committee on Publication Ethics. The committee formed in the year 1997, and the committee, of course, not only situated in India. This committee is a very important committee, and globally, this committee has been recognized on the international body, and those who want to publish a journal or a book, right, or any other things. So either you will become a member of the committee, I mean COP, so that it got a reputation, right? So why it is this? For example, looking into stock market perceptions. For example, if your company wants to list in a BSE or NSE, right, you have to follow the listing guidelines. So unless and until you will follow the listing guidelines, you cannot enter into the BSE or NSE for trading your shares, right? So their listing criteria, we know there are a lot of regulations framed by the SEBI. You have to follow this kind of listing criteria, right? Once you do not follow the listing criteria, your name will be withdrawn, or you will be suspended. Your trading will be suspended. Similarly, when a publication or a book or a journal or a will be connected with the COP, it means that the committee, and it means that the committee, that whenever you enter into, you have to follow the standards. If you don't follow it, so your gradation will be less, right? You will not be upgraded to your publication. I mean, you cannot go for a good to be treated as a good publishers. Right. So that is important. Then you look into this, the another example. For example, the teachers, those who are teaching in our India or in abroad, right? So they are looking for for example, IIM. I'm just giving an example of IIM or the big IIM. Of course, I am Calcutta, I am Ahmedabad or Bangalore or even IIT, right? So the teachers, those who want to publish the A category journal or B category journal or C category journal or the top rated journals, right? So they took a huge pain to publish a good article in the A category journal because there is rigorous process of review. Okay. So they try to follow the standards, whether it has been followed, contribution is original, analyzing it properly. After that, they publish it. You know, those who are scholars, particularly for the scholars, you don't believe that if you publish one article in a good journal, a category journal, some of the leading institutions in India, they will pay 2 lakh rupees from their own fund, right? Or more than 2 lakh rupees, 1 lakh rupees to the author, right? So this is an amazing situation. Of course, that is an incentive for publishing a good journal. I'm not talking about this kind of funding agencies. This is called funding agencies, right? So contribution does not mean that you will contribute thing, it will go to your name, of course. But at the same time, whenever you are associated with an institution, the credit also goes to the institution also, right? For example, I'm talking about few minutes back that when we are talking about the ranking of the institution, the ranking mostly depends on the teaching, learning, and the research. There are so many other parameters. But a look into the teaching, learning, and research is very important from the academic institution's point of view. So institutional support and institutions' role is very important, right? How the institutions play an important role to provide you the support, to provide you the physical support, to provide you the congenial environment, to provide you the financial support, to provide you the intellectual support. At the same time, you can grow. Being a researcher, you can grow. You have to be motivated by your seniors, by your guide, by your supervisor, right? So that is the environment that we have to follow. Okay. So why it is important at the right moment? You know, when we are talking about the World Association of Medical Editors, of course, medical journal editors, right? So today, this is a very, very important. I mean, for example, for the last 2 years, a lot of research is carried out, already published on only one focal point regarding the vaccine, COVID vaccine. So imagine, right? So you see the challenges before the medical journals and the medical editors, right? Original contribution of the authors. Who contributed it? You see, today there is a great challenges of manipulating data, falsification of data, collecting data, plagiarism, and so many other things. And where you will apply it. So subject is very, very critical and very, very important at the right moment. Right. So the role of the different national and international bodies is very important today. Whenever it will publish, whenever they will they are in responsible or supervising or surveillance of the different journals and publications. That's the important. That's why the University Grants Commission has taken a right steps, right initiatives, how to improve the quality of research, and it does not fall under the unethical practices by the researchers, right? Because in a human, because you see I do understand that the people, those who are pursuing research, they are very, very good academician, but at the same time, I know there are so many people or students, they don't have a bad intention, but sometimes what happens whenever you'll be given a lot of materials. I have some experiences, of course, you have some experiences being a guide, being a supervisor, being a scholar, right? So, whenever you will given a chance to write an article on a particular issue, so what they try to do initially, try to copy from the different articles and put it in a article form and submit to his or her guide. Right. So this is they do not know exactly how to write. This is there is no false in that case. But you see, uh, you have already understood about the plagiarism and the other aspects. But what is important thing? Sometimes what we observe that there is the contribution is basically it's a nothing as a contribution. It's a copy and paste, and sometimes it does not make any sense. That's we have experienced this kind of writings. So immediately, being the researchers, being the supervisors, we have to formalize it, and we have to guide them that don't do this. I know you have an intention, you don't have any bad intention, but whatever at the beginning of your career, you have to write it properly, you have to understand it properly, so that nobody can challenge you, because this article belongs to you, not belongs to the other people. Whenever you will write a single word, it belongs to you, it belongs to you, only it belongs to you. So be careful about writing of whatever a single word you will be writing. Please try to write from your own. Not only that, whatever you think, whatever you explain it, please try to understand it properly. Otherwise, you don't write. Okay, we know there are so many cases reported nationally that so many people they published articles in different journals, right? So why it is important after that it reported that those articles, uh, whenever checked and found say high plagiarism issues. So that's the important thing. That's the role of the editors of a journal. That's the role of the COP. That's the role of the WAME, as well as the COP. So why we are talking about it? Because the demand from the different organizations. What kind of demand? You are the scholars. We are the teachers. We are the one. Someone is a publisher. Someone is the institutions. Right. Now, for example, you submit a project to the DST, to the UGC, to the CSIR, to the other ICCR, or to the other funding agencies nationally, or the World Bank, whatever. There are so many funding agencies available, or the state government, or the any other agencies, or the banks, or even the RBI. There are a lot of funding agencies. They are offering funds, but you see, the expectation of the funding agencies that you have to contribute an original work and try to highlight the contributions and your own contributions and the contributions of the team. Right. We have some experiences of the regarding the funding agencies expectation. Right. So in universities and in colleges, so there are a lot of teachers, they apply for different minor research projects or the major research projects, right? And of course, at the end of you'll be getting say funds for uh, different purposes, like the uh, funds for setting laboratory, or for buying books or softwares or the other expenses, or even research projects, whatever. I mean, the project fellow or so many things. So the important thing is, ultimately at the end of the project, you have to write, you have to publish a good article, good book, good thing, whatever the topics, whatever the thing that you have submitted. Right, this is very important. So the expectations is very important from the funding agencies. Listen, the another example. If you look at another example from the corporate world, In corporate, there are there are specific department we call the research and development department. In a big companies, they recruited some very reputed professors, and for the different posts, only they look into this kind of original contribution of their products, or the reshaping the products, redesigning the products, reinventing the products, right? So it would be free from plagiarism. That's the important thing. Okay, so look into this technological development today. If you put this kind of unethical practices, immediately the tracking systems, immediately the artificial intelligence will follow you, and finally you will be caught. So keeping in mind this kind of issues, so the from the university's perspective or the institution's perspectives, you look into the whenever you are in a university or in colleges or in institutions or even in MBA college or in even in IIT or even in engineering colleges or even in medical institutions, you have a different expectations. The university have a different expectations from you. So the sometimes we are mismatching our objectives. For example, I know there are so many of my students as well as scholars. First thing, the people, those who are in a teaching profession, of course, it is a mandatory for us that whenever you are in a teaching profession, we have to publish some articles only for our promotional purposes, selecting the UGC care rating journal, right, and the you will be getting some points. Right. So there are some objectives, but you see the then you have to find out who are the peer rating journal, uh, search from the UGC websites and try to find out some of the important journals like the online journals or the physical mood journals. Then you will send a paper to them, and might be they will be accepted you, and it will fulfilling your criteria. So this is one kind of research that you are pursuing, of course, from your own original work. Of course, might be a good one, but the intention is clear here that some of the scholars, some of the teachers, even I am not an exception from this point, that we do follow this kind of our career perspective, that we do follow that we have to publish some of the articles and books from the criteria based or standard based, standard set by the UC or any other organization, so that I'll get promoted. So nobody asks you questions that you are published your articles from not from the UGC tier list or from the list as per the UGC guidelines or any other regulatory body guidelines. So this is one kind of objective from your career perspective. But you see, when we are talking, thinking, right? So contribution of the research, why we are far away, why we are far away from the Oxford University, from the MIT, from the Harvard, from the California Institute of Technology in terms of research. Why an Indian institutions not in the rank of within 100, within 200 of the global institutions, right? One of the important reasons, there are a lot of studies, lot of people are working to find out the important causes why the Indian universities, Indian institutions not at par with the global institutions like those who are in the top, like the Oxford, like the MIT, like the Harvard, like the California Institute of Technology, like the so many Cambridge, whatever. Okay, so the criteria that we understand is very important, and of course the research is a very important criteria. They got the 99% from the research perspectives. I mean, the publishing good articles, good journals by the teachers of the respective institutes is a very important one, right? Not only from their own career perspective, but from their own inquisitive or their own, seeking of the different problems, solving different problems, right? Either in a team or see when we are talking about this kind of vaccination programs, right? Vaccine development or the development of vaccine, Oxford University plays an important role. So imagine how an university plays an important role. We know Oxford University Press is a very popular press, right? So see this kind of contributions in the field of research, in the field of different subjects, not only in the social science, even in medical science also, how Oxford University contributed, right? So that's why they placed a very good position in the world ranking in the higher education institution. Okay, so why we are not of course, you may put say 10 reasons, I may put say 5 reasons, you may put say another 2 reasons. There are a lot of reasons. So forget about the reasons. Our task is to publish a good quality articles in a good journals, of course, in a top-rated journals, very good journals, so that our institutions, our universities, not only that, even from your own satisfaction, whenever your publications will be heated by so many people, or will be reading by so many people, you will be more happy, right? So this is very important from a teacher's perspective, from a scholar's perspective, right? So that's why the another important aspects. Now coming to the publisher's point of view. So like the COP or the other organizations, or those who are core members of this kind of two institutions, right? They are the publishers. Publishers might be the different publishers. They publish books, journals, articles, whatever. So even the publishers play an important role to publish your article, right? We have a very good journals globally, right? In a science field, in the other fields. I've already mentioned one of the important journals in our social science, Journal of Finance, Abacus is a very important journal from our accounting and finance field. We have a science field, we have a good journal of the nature, right? If you want to publish a paper in the nature, you see the people will see your paper. Most of the academic institutions in the world, they subscribe the natures. So imagine how many people will look into your article, right? But when you will publish your journal in a local publishers, or even if it is good, even it is better, even it is very good journals, but unless and until it will access by the so many people, so who will read it? So that's the important one. So that's why the publishers, whenever you will be selecting, is very important. And who will be the publishers? What would be their ethical, whether they follow the ethical standards or not, set by the different organizations, globally or national organizations, yes or no? That is important, right? So hope that we try to understand what the role of the editor, that's the important one, and what the role of the institutions at the right moment. So moving to the next slide, we know there are so many terms and terminologies we have already know. This is a very few one. There are a lot of terminologies in this subject. This is a new subject. Hope we have a subject in our curriculum in a MPhil or PhD program, like the research methodology. Of course, today it is an additional subject, not additional, it's a compulsory subject that introduced by the UGC, and most of the institutions they are now following. They have to adopt this. Not only yet adopted, but they are trying to adopt these subjects. The subject is a research ethics, or in a different form, whatever the form given by the UGC or the other body. So the 2-3 important objectives of these courses. One is a good quality research. Another one is to avoid plagiarism. That means the people, if you don't recheck and control it, then people have an intention that they go for this kind of copy and paste mechanism, right? Which is called research misconduct, of course, or plagiarism. There are so many other terminologies like the conflict of interest, peer review, authorship, or transparency, whatever. Okay, so there are so many things that we know, right? So you have already know there are so many terminologies, but you see, we need to understand. Being a researcher, I know that this is not the right time. Whenever you will be writing a public article, then you do understand why it is important. Whenever you will become a supervisor, then you understand most importantly, if your name will be put with your scholar, if any misconduct or any kind of uh, situation that may face by your scholars, so you will be in an awkward position. That is important. So please do avoid this kind of unethical practices. Of course, this is our role being a researchers. Now we come to the important things. This is a research ethics. It's a very common. Of course, uh, I do appreciate that there are so many organizations they are preparing this kind of ethical aspects. I do acknowledge the important thing. Otherwise, it is one kind of unethical practices that I am following it. Of course, so that's why whenever you will be writing anything, if it is not easy from your own, you have to acknowledge it. Sometimes what happens, the paraphrasing word, what is called paraphrasing. Sometimes the people are writing their articles by taking from the another one people's article, by changing the some of the words inside the article, or some of the lines, some of the words, uh, I mean the or the breaking the sentences. This is called paraphrasing. So don't try to do this kind of paraphrasing, because you see the technology developed in such a way that you will be your article will be rejected, right? So this is very important. I know there are so many students, they are doing very serious work, either by using the secondary data or using the primary data, right? So the research ethics, of course, honesty and integrity, there is a common philosophy of the research. We do not reiterate of these two one. So these are some of the important aspects, like the protection of human subjects, of course. When we are talking about the WAME, that means the medical journals that people are using uh, for their own experiments, like for example, the medicinal products, right? So using the animals, right, for testing of the medicines. So that's the important one. One is as another ethical aspects, right? So care of animal subject is very important, and of course we have to be responsible publisher, responsible publication, right? And confidentiality you have to maintain whenever you publish. Being a publisher, you have to maintain all the confidentiality regarding the authorship, regarding the data, regarding the other things as a standards, respecting copyrights, etc. Whatever objectivity, everything you have to consider. Now we go for the courts and policymakers. No, when we are talking about the courts, who will write the courts? The next question, or who will write setting the standards, right? So you see, whenever any situation will come to us, right, the people voluntarily came forward and they try to resolve the problem. Okay, you don't think that the people are getting something from this particular aspects. No, not at all. In a journey of the education system, if you look into this, right, whenever this kind of mismatching is found, and people are utilizing this kind of misconduct, scientific misconduct, right, one of the word that we know, or the falsification of reports, or the fabrication, or the imaging, right? So some people came forward and formed regulations, right? So that the reliability, the confidentiality have to be maintained. So this is a common philosophy. What kind of philosophy? Does it look like this? Whenever any kind of, the misconduct, unethical practices conducted, right, when it came to notice to the common people or the academic field, people try to protect it. People try to stop it. But how to stop it? Unless and until there is a formal body, there is a formal rule and regulations. That's why courts plays an important role and policymakers plays an important role. Either it's in a nationally or internationally. Okay, not only in research, even in so many other fields, even in finance, accounting, or any other fields, sociology, whatever, or medical sciences. Okay, so that's the important one. There are so many national organizations, international organizations, they frame the different types of policy course for different purposes. For example, we have heard a lot of course framed by the WHO in the last 2 years for different purposes. We have heard the National Institute of Health, they are also framing it. We have heard the International Committee for Medical Journal Editors and the uh, MIAMI. The European Union is also called, we know the National Science Foundation also use it. We know the FDA or the Prof, they are the national and international bodies. We have an Indian context, we have some of the Indian bodies also. Okay, so what kind of course? This is called standards at course. When we are talking about the standards, it's not a rule that you have to follow it. Course and standards are not rule, it's the standards, people will follow it. Right. So standards, when it follows it, that you have to follow this kind of standards, right? When you follow it properly, then you will be automatically upgraded. If you don't follow it, so your name may not be upgraded. So whatever the COPE or the WAME, they set the standards. You can get website, you can get their best practices in websites. I do not reiterate all these best practices because this is available, freely available in a COPE website or the WAME website. Okay, so it is freely available, like the transparency or so many other things. It's available. Don't worry. So, but where it will be available, that is important. Being the researchers, being the young publishers, you have an intention to publish a journal, to publish a good quality books. So you have to follow the standards of course maintained in our journals. I'll be sharing some of the important issues. So why we are talking about it, the national level organizations, they are also following like the WAMI on the COPE. You see, when we are talking about the Indian context, I repeat once again, the international Center for Publication Ethics also set up. The UGC CARE also. What is the CARE full form? Consortium for Academic and Research Ethics. So this UGC CARE UGC CARE, why it is important for Indian context? The reason behind this, in case of the Indian context, so initially what we know for the last few years, initially the UGC accredited journals, right? That means if you apply to the UGC, then your name will be accredited, right? But for the last 2 years, beyond 2018, when UGC came out with this kind of CARE rating journals, that means whether you are following the research ethics or not, this is important. Okay, so that's why UGC published two different types of journals, category 1, category 2 journals. If you visit the UGC website, then you will find the UGC category 1, category 2 journals, research ethics, right? So the reason behind this, that the journals should be free from any kind of plagiarism, and the authors, as well as the role of the authors, as well as the role of the editors, should be clearly mentioned in the journal, right? So If you look into the UGC care list, every journals have their own websites, and whatever the guidelines mostly framed by the UGC, it has been uploaded. It has to be uploaded in their own website so that the authors should know their ethical issues, ethical guidelines, ethical important aspects, right? For example, I happens to be one of the associate editor in Indian Accounting Review. We have own our website, IARF, Indian Accounting Association Research Foundation. If you look into our websites and journals website, then you will find our journal section. Then every point has to be highlighted in our journal. Not yet care rated because we are in the process of applying for the care. Earlier it was ABC accredited journals. What happens that unless and until you are following this kind of ethical issues, so sometimes sort of there is a question of the credentiality and credibility. Okay, that you are not following. So this is called mandatory at the right moment. Okay, this is called mandatory because we have to follow this kind of guidelines. This is called national guidelines. So besides, there are some other national uh, guidelines. The important one. The For example, UGC guidelines. For example, in Indian context, All India Council for Technical Education. The objective, of course, coverage and guidelines of the regulations. Right. For example, UGC guidelines, we have to the main object focus on plagiarism checking. Awareness on academic integrity is a very important from the ethical perspective, ethical point of view. Right. Do not try to copy. Do not try to follow the others' paper or others' ideas, perceptions. No, whenever we are talking about the good authors, good writing, authors should design it their own work, right? So what is called the original contribution? That is a debate today. So what is called the original contribution? The perception, the inception or the conception of the topic from anyone. Right. Sometimes you are borrowing it. There are so many books written, so many cinemas, so many other things, right? But the idea that borrowed from the other people, but if you do not acknowledge, it is very harmful or very unethical practices, right? You are borrowing ideas, you are borrowing conception, you are borrowing perceptions, whatever this is the integrity. You have to follow the integrity. You have a good idea, of course. If I follow your idea, I have to acknowledge it. Why not? So this is the proper, you have to follow this kind of academic integrity. Not only academic integrity, anywhere in our own life, we have to follow this kind of academic integrity. Right. Similarly, EICT, when you're talking about the EICT, of course, they are following the same interest. When we are talking about the Department of Science and Technology, that means they are funding huge amount for the development of science and technology field, right? Because lot of patents, the lot of patents, lot of other things has been developed by the science and technology teachers throughout the world. Not only the IIT, even the universities in the different parts of the country, they are following this one. Not only India, but in other things. So they are the main funding agencies in the science and technology, right? So science and technology, they try to find out there is a conflict of interest when you are funding. So whether they are following these things or not, publication is not right. So this is a very important one. So reviewers proposal, right? So when you are sending a proposal, who will review it? Proposals will be accepted or not? Who will be the members of the committee, program advisory committees? You have to be, this is a conflict of interest, right? So that's why this conflict of interest needs to be resolved properly so that it should be properly utilize the funds. So another important organizations in our India, in our country, like the Department of Biotechnology, of course, there are a lot of issues in a biotechnology field at the right moment. Okay, so that is important. ICMR at the right moment. You know, the ICMR plays an important role, and it is a very, very common name to everyone in Indians, especially from the pandemic situations onwards. Right. Earlier, the people in a non-science, social science, they are not much aware about the ICMR. But you see, the today ICMR plays an important role, and the people are very aware about their functions, about their contributions in the field of research, especially uh, in a vaccine on all situations. You see, this is a very important one, and they are continuously monitoring. You see how the ICMR plays an important role. The other important thing is when an original contributor, original producer of a particular product or whatever, right? So how they trial it, how they experimented it, it's an important one on human being or human subjects or the animals, whatever, right? So this is an important one. So another important uses that we know, the commonly uses code, especially so many other global bodies also, right? So now the international courts, there are so many international bodies. They also played an important role in international courts, you know, very well. So codes of ethics from International Sociological Association, right? Then Universal Declaration on Biotechnology. There are so many international bodies. It's important. Okay. So these are the important codes and important international bodies, not only the local or national bodies. Besides, a very important one, self-regulation is very important. Why we are talking about the self-regulation? You know, the SRO, self-regulatory organizations and self-regulations. SRO basically is a self-regulatory organizations. For example, you are in an institution like the university. University might be a SRO. And of course, your institutions might be an SRO. They will also frame the self-regulation for the teachers, for their staffs, for their scholars. Whenever they'll publish it, how the university frame the regulation, you have to follow it. That means besides those who are scholars or researchers, they are regulated by their own way. I do not want to commit anything. This is my regulations. Okay, why I'll commit it? I have to read, I'll write it in my own copy. So another one important observation that I could share before you. Sometimes, we started our career say 30 years back. So you see the problem is when we are talking about it today, the young scholars, right? I do not mention the name of all scholars, but whatever the experiences that I could share before you, that today the young scholars, they don't try to write in a copy or in their own copy or in handbook. Whatever they are thinking, I know there are so many smart scholars there. Immediately they'll write their own thing in a phone or in a smartphone or in their own laptops. But at the same time, please do write whatever you are thinking in your own copy, in your own notebook, so whenever you are writing something in your own copy, in your notebook, it has some importance from your own. That means you are thinking in a different way, right? To write in a copy, to write in a notebook, whenever you write it, sometimes there would be a change within you. I don't know why it may happen, may not happen to everyone. But it may happen in my life that whenever I write something in my own notebook or copy, we are in offline classes, online classes at the right moment, online lectures at the right moment. But I'm not uh, I'm not. I mean, experiencing your facial expressions or your. I mean the issues that whether you are understanding or not, or your expressions or your body language. So that whenever you are in a offline classes, we do interact rightly or ask questions, or even you know better than me in a particular issue. So we do share it. Why not? I do not claim that I know better than you. Of course, this in this particular digital world, the people are continuously learning. We are continuously learning, right? We have to learn, otherwise we will be perishing. Okay, so you see, the important thing is this: you have to write something in your own copy, own notebook, right? So this is important. So this is called self-regulations. When you'll be writing something, I know that I have some experiences of my scholars. I try to impose that you please write in own copy. Whatever you will write in your own laptop or computers, please do write in own copy, so you will understand the differences between these two, right? Sometimes our another experiences I could share before you. Whenever some scholars send their own chapters and articles to the soft copy, so we may do it, but sometimes we could embarrass that it is very difficult to correct in the computer. Sometimes line by line it's very difficult to correct. Sometimes it could not make the sense properly. So that is important one. So that's why in a hard copy you can write something or think in a different way, or I don't know, might be will be very conversant with the computers. But whatever I do understand that please this is one practice that writing is very important in a copy, and it will hit in your mind. It will hit in your mind permanently. Okay, so that is important as I feel. So this is a self-regulatory, as well as self-regulations from your own. Okay, so now I come to the some of the important best practices. As you know, the transparency is a very important one. Authorship, credit. So there are different authors, as you know, in a journal or articles, author, co-author, whatever you know. Sorry. Okay, so so many other practices, best practices, right? So many other best practices, as we know, these best practices uh, that are the guidelines to be followed by the publishers, by the agencies, of course. Okay, so there are so many practices, right? So quality, intellectual property, ensuring the integrity, possible misconduct, whatever, or scientific misconduct, as you know, the so many best practices, right? So that best practices, uh, we have to follow the best practices guidelines, right? So, for example, we are talking about the general duties and responsibility of the editors, right? I know these are the or the relation with the readers. You have to check with the authors, right? Authors, co-authors, or reviewers. We know the term is a peer-reviewed journal when we talk about the reviewers, right? So there are a lot of conflict between the reviewers and the editors. Reviewers keep the opinion, or sometimes there is a conflict of interest between the reviewers and the authors. It might happen in the normal situation. That's why lot of gray areas that need to be resolved by the editor with the editorial board and journal owners and publishers, right? So these are the important things that we need to, of course, protecting our individual data, and of course we have to ensure the quality, right? So lot of best practices regarding the transparency, data integrity, then intellectual property, then authorship, because you know the definition of authors are also different from the different perspectives, right? So these are the some things. We have another 15 minutes, because I desperately put this 15 minutes for you. When if you have any questions, then of course we'll be discussing something. But you see, before closing this discussion, the other one is when you are talking about the scientific misconduct before that, and the another one thing is when we are talking about the publishing journals and articles in scientific journals like the medical journals, right? Like the Nature and the other medical journals. Another very important thing is this. Just look at the just one example I can cite here. For example, the data collection method, questionnaire, interview, recording, measurement, very important. This is called data management. Data format, as you know very well. So then another important thing is this: in a medical journal, sometimes we are using the animals, right? So different types of animals. So taking care of animals as well as the other issues is very important. Now, in case of the authorship issues, there are different authors. One is the co-author, one is the main author, the other one is the co-author, another one is a gift, another one is a guest author, gift author, ghost author. Right, different names of the authors as given. So another very important thing is this. Sometimes our experiences look like this. When my scholars contributed a large, it's a very significant in a particular article. Sometimes not me, even so many other scholars, other supervisors, they put pressure. They put pressure that you please put my name in your paper. Might be there are some contributions. So then it would be a co-author or guest author or whatever, right? So in a science field, if you look into the authors, name of the authors in a science field or technology field, on article may be written more than 6, 7, 8 authors, right? So might be they are the guest authors, might be they are the co-authors sometimes, right? So the main contribution would be as a could be the different main on might be the different. Okay, that's the issue. So cite on case. For example, there are for example two people design a research study together and applied successfully for funding. And the funding enables, for example, you put your the two teachers of a particular department, they applied for a funding to the CSR or any kind of funding agency. And whenever you submit a proposal along with the budget that you put for another research assistant, and the research assistant when he or she employs, right? The assistant carries out data collection and analyzes the data. And even the assistant goes on a draft paper for publication based on the results. And both the professors, those who originally submitted, right, they are impressed the work of the paper. They decided that they decided that there is no need to revise the important intellectual content, but therefore submit to the research journals. Then the question comes, who should be the named authors on the manuscript? Either the scholar would be the main author, or the co-authors, or the other professors would be the co-authors. Who would be the main author? Okay, so this is the one case. Of course, those who contributed. So in that sense, the original idea, of course, the two professors, but whenever this is of course carried out by the assistant, so sometimes if the professors do agree, so of course the assistant would be the main author and the professors would be the co-authors. right? So this is the real example that we know every time we are facing this kind of situation. Another example, sometimes it's a very common example to us, right? So, uh, for example, you are writing a paper and it published in a internet version journal. Okay, internet version journal, right? So the same paper, you also send to the another physical mode of journals. So during the process of review, the journal was alerted by one of the reviewers that an exact match of the manuscript, including identical images, was found in the internet only. Then the authors contracted by the respective publishers that you have already published the journal to their internet version journal, and the editors of the internet version journal replied that unless and until the editor replied that it would not, that the submission was rejected, and that unless and until it was withdrawn from the internet journal, it will not be published. So be careful. This example. Sometimes what happened, you put your article in internet journal, then immediately you got a point. After that, you try to publish it in a physical mode journals. There are two articles will be published in the same journal. So this might be the one of the important aspects. So please take care of this kind of issue. Okay, so thanks all for your patient hearing. I hope that there are some questions from you end. If you have any questions, I will try to answer it. Right. So over to Siddharth.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for the session. We have few questions in our chat box, sir.
Sure,
The
sure.
first question being, sir, that what should be done to prevent publication misconduct?
So please repeat once again the question.
Sir, what should be done to prevent publication misconduct?
Okay. So if you look into the publication misconduct, what exactly it means? Publication misconduct. Okay. Publication misconduct means what? So, or the research misconduct. Misconduct basically, as we understand, is a fabrication, research misconduct, falsification, or plagiarism in designing, conducting, or reviewing research, or in reporting the findings of the research. Is it okay? So these are the basic idea about the research misconduct. When you are falsified, what falsification involves? Misrepresentation of the research by changing data or results, or by tampering with equipment, research methods, or materials. So it is interesting. I'll put my observation. I know this might happen, especially this kind of misconduct made by the mainly that we understand by the different projects submitted by the different students at the different levels. For example, MBA projects, BBA projects, right, or the other in our commerce and management field, commerce department projects, whatever, where there is a marks assigned. Okay, so the students they are, or the scholars they are pursuing, they are doing that. They are changing the name of the company, but data remains same. They are changing the small corrections of the data. This is called falsification. Okay, that we randomly that we observe, Fabrication, another important thing. Reporting false or made up data, results or research outputs. That means you are reporting false data. I mean, data is not collected. For example, We know the data that we are collecting from the, I mean, see, one example, in a primary survey, sometimes what happened, you did not visit any organization, but you are collecting, you are showing this data. This is one kind of fabrication, right? That is, then another one is the plagiarism, as you know very well. And the question is, how do you protect it? Of course, the universities and institutions define the policies. Of course, the misconduct to be managed by the respective institutions. How to manage it? Because you will send it to because there is a committee. The committee will check it, verify it. In an article, or in a editor plays an important role. Institutions plays an important role. So, for example, at the right moment, if you put in the article to send a publication, you have to check your plagiarism report, right? So that obviously track it. Number one. Number two, those who are the true reviewers, whenever they got this kind of article or report, after reviewing it, they'll check it the data, cross check it. From this way, they may try to control this kind of research misconduct. When it happens, immediately requires some punishment. So that's why the or image manipulation, sometimes the image manipulation is important, right? So that is the important thing. Okay, so any other questions?
Thank you, sir. There is another question which is asking what repository can be used to disseminate open access published research article.
So, as we know, a repository or depository, whatever the term used here, usually, as you know, the Shodhganga is one of the repository, right? Where you can get a huge amount of research data. For example, from our university, almost 13,000 PhD theses where you can get, right, on different subjects. So nationally in India, of course, there are different bodies, institutions funded by the government of India. And internationally, there are so many other institutes or authorities where you can get the different published authentic data. I know there are independent or private institutions, they are trying to play an important role as a repository. But I hope that please do not. Of course, you can check it whether this repository privately managed by someone or not. But please do check whether this repository is a public funded or authentic or not. Sometimes what happened in a privately funded or so many other companies, they are trying to give the data which is not. It's a very authentic data might be. I know whenever we are talking, we are pursuing our PhD program or doing your research, we are taking data from the different sources. So whenever you click on a particular data, you see there are different sources, databases are available. For example, the stock market data. Which data you will collect from the NSE or BSE or from the other private sources? That is important. So repository is very important from the data or from the research articles or the theses, publications. Right. So go to the respective organizations where it is available. Otherwise, sometimes what happens, you will be misleading. Right. The data authenticity is very important. Okay. Next question, please.
Thank you, sir. Any other participant who will like to ask a question can quickly unmute themselves because we are approaching to the end of the session. So we can take one last question if possible. Any of the research scholars or participants can unmute themselves.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I am Mohammed Kaif from Research Scholar, Mahatma Gandhi Central University. My question is, if I send data to any publication or conference, but maybe stolen by your reviewer or any person, this is possible or not, sir?
Yes, absolutely possible. I know there are so many. You see, there is important thing is you put. Sometimes what happened in a conference, I have some experiences of the conferences, but we didn't this kind of. We are organizing so many conferences, and even international conferences in January 8 and 9, 2022. If you visit our IARF website, then you will find there is international conference will be held physical mode in Science City, Kolkata. The respective, I mean, the websites and the other information available to IAR website, Indian Accounting Association Research Foundation website. So we got, say, more than 100 papers, right, in a particular international, more than 100 papers, good research papers, of course. So I have at the right moment around more than 100 papers with me, right? So, your point is very right? So the conference over for the last 2 years back. It was held 2 years back. So what is my responsibility? Should I use the data? Should I write by changing the name of the paper senders and in my name? I do not do it. This is my ethical perspective. Because the work that you have done, I know your point is right. There are so many people. Of course, they did or they may not did, but there is a possibility. Okay, so that's why leave it to the respective organizers, right? Leave it to the respective organizers. But the other one important thing is, if they do not accept your paper, you please send the paper to the other people, right? Other articles or journals, whether they will publish it. So this is the role of the editor. The role of the editor is very sensitive. You should be very careful, very transparent, very genuine. Otherwise, see, the people will trust you. If the people will trust, otherwise, what will happen? If these things may happen, right, or happen in a journal, so their reputation will be reduced. Of course, Mohammed.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. This takes us to the end of the session, and I'll take this opportunity to thank our resource person for this session, Professor A.K. Sinha sir, for his highly informative session on best practices and standard setting initiatives and guidelines. Certainly, sir, it is the duty and responsibility of young research scholars to take us forward, and I sincerely hope that all the participants attending this session must have learned immensely from the session. I'll also like to.
Sorry, Siddharth.
Sir.
I just shared my experiences in so many cases because over the last 2 decades, as a supervisor, as a scholar myself, I do consider always as a student, of course. I do not consider as a scholar, as a teacher in the field of accounting, finance, and whatever. I always considered as a student, as a scholar. You always try to consider always a scholar, right? So that you do understand, you try to develop yourself. Every day you try to develop yourself. This is my humble suggestion to everyone. You're the young scholar, young teacher at the right moment. Please do try as a scholar. Always that you have to learn something, right? So I am trying always to learn something, either in a software or in a different econometric tools or preferring the primary databases, whatever, right? So please try, always try, right? So hope, sorry, Siddharth.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And I sincerely hope that all of us will be taking your suggestions very seriously, sir, and will try to incorporate this in our academic careers forward.
Sure.
I'll also like to thank our Honorable Dean, Professor Pavnesh Kumar, who is the course coordinator, along with Dr. Sapna Sugandha and Dr. Alka Lalhal, who are the course co-coordinator of this session, and with this, all our faculty members of the department as well. I thank the participants for their involvement, who make our sessions interactive by asking relevant questions. And with these words, on behalf of Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya, School of Commerce and Management Sciences, I'd like to express our sincere thanks to all of the participants, academicians, and research scholars who have joined. We will now be joining again in the evening at 6 p.m. and the session will be taken by Dr. Mansaf Alam sir from Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. We express our heartfelt gratitude to you, sir, once again for taking out time from your busy schedule and making this session possible.
Thank you once again to everyone for your patient hearing and sharing your views and asking questions. Thank you all. So may I leave now? May I leave
Yeah,
now?
sir. With your due
Thank you.
permission now, sir, we
Sure,
can
sure,
bring
sure.
this session to a
Sure, sure,
close.
sure, sure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.